privilege. Dear women, I'm sorry. Dear black people, I'm sorry. Dear Asian Americans, dear Native Americans, dear immigrants who come here seeking a better life, I'm sorry. Dear everyone who isn't a middle or upper class white boy, I'm sorry. I have started life at the top of a ladder while you were born on the first rung. When I was born, I had a success story already written for me. You were given a pen and no paper. I've always felt that that's unfair, but I've never dared to speak up because I've been too scared. Dear white boys, I'm not sorry. I don't care if you think the feminists are taking over the world or the Black Lives Matter movement has gotten a little too strong because that's bullshit. I get that change can be scary, but equality shouldn't be. Hey, white boys, it's time to act like a woman, to be strong and make a difference. It's time to let go of that fear. It's time to take that ladder and turn it into a bridge.
So this idiot 14-year-old kid, and this kid is, you know, there's this whole group of people on the left who indoctrinate their children and then celebrate when their kids preach back to them all the things that they've taught to them. So there's this 14-year-old kid named Royce Mann. He participated in a poetry slam at his private school in Atlanta, Georgia. First of all, it's a private school, so I'm going to go with ain't exactly impoverished. He participates in a poetry slam. Second indicator, it's not exactly impoverished. A poetry slam. Also indicated that the school is doing a terrible job. No one should ever be involved in a poetry slam. That should never happen for any reason. Poetry slams are created by the devil and should never be allowed into the public square. You know, it's like BDSM. You want to do it on your own time, enjoy yourself, but please don't bring it into public. Okay, so Royce Mann is a 14-year-old, and he just trots out this routine about white privilege. And of course, he gets cheered for this, right? The way the white kid gets cheered for saying that he's privileged. That's the way this works. So if you just go out there and say, oh, yes, everything that has happened in my life is because I'm white, everybody, yay, you're a genius, yay! Whereas if you're actually a genius and you did something genius, if you like invented a new product, everybody would go, oh, that's nice. but you, like, if you actually invented a scientific breakthrough, everybody would go, oh, that's kind of cool. But if you go out there and you say, well, you know, I'm privileged, and I know because I'm a child, and children have all the wisdom of the earth. Nah, kids are dumb. I mean, if kids were smart, they'd run the world, and if kids did run the world, they'd all be bombing each other by age 2. I mean, legitimately, 2-year-olds in a room with guns, no one survives. So here's this 14-year-old kid. Here's this 14-year-old kid doing his white boy privilege poetry slam. Ugh.
My name is Royce, and my poem is titled White Boy Privilege. Dear women, I'm sorry. Dear black people, I'm sorry. Dear Asian Americans, dear Native Americans, dear immigrants who come here seeking a better life, I'm sorry. Dear everyone who isn't a middle or upper class white boy, I'm sorry. I have started life at the top of a ladder while you were born on the first rung. I say now that I would change places with you in an instant, but if given the opportunity, would I? Probably not, because to be honest, being privileged is awesome. I'm not saying that you and me on different rungs of the ladder is how I want it to stay. I'm not saying that any part of me has for a moment even liked it that way. I'm just saying that I love being privileged and I'm not ready to give that away. I love it because I can say and not one of you is attributing that to the fact that everyone with my skin color has a dirty mouth. I love it because I don't have to spend an hour every morning putting on makeup to meet other people's standards. I love it because I can worry about what kind of food is on my plate instead of whether or not there will be food on my plate. I love it because when I see
and then he goes along these
officer,
lines. Okay, let me explain something to you, stupid 14-year-old child. Everyone in life, everyone is born in a different circumstance. All the people are born in different circumstances. Yes, some of those are better. Yes, some of those are worse. But if you don't have equal rules that apply to everyone, it matters where you end up in life and what direction you're going, not where you started. If you think that where you started is where you end up, then you're living in a tyranny. If you think that where you started should not determine where you end up, then you're in favor of freedom and you should get out of the way instead of just wandering around talking about how privilege is an unalterable lack of privilege is an unalterable burden that you can't overcome. You're just stuck. No matter if you're born without privilege, then you're just stuck. Of course, people are born with different privileges. They're born with two parents instead of one parent. They're born rich instead of poor. They're born smart instead of stupid. Like, this happens. That doesn't mean that the solution to that is to simply apologize for your privilege and then suggest that that privilege is unalterable and you're stuck where you are. Again, that's part of the whole tear down the entire system routine. Because if you're stuck where you are, that's unfair. We have to tear down the entire system. And by the way, I don't attribute the kid saying the F word to the fact that he has that he's white. I don't attribute black people saying the F word to the fact that they're black. I attribute people who are 14 years old saying the F word to the fact that they have crappy parents. That's what I attribute that to. Regardless, and crappy teachers who are sitting there just nodding along. How about, again, equal standards applied to everyone. That doesn't mean we all finish up in the same place. It doesn't even mean that we all have equal opportunity, so to speak, because the fact is that we don't. I don't have an equal opportunity to play in the NBA. Number one, I have no outside jump shot. Number two, I can't exactly post up. I'm 5'9". Right? So, but that doesn't mean that the rules don't apply to everyone equally, and what you make of those rules is up to you. It's your job to make sure that you succeed in life. It's the government's job to make sure that everyone else gets out of your way. It's not the government's job to correct what Thomas Sowell calls cosmic imbalances. There's no quest for cosmic justice inherent in life. And sitting there complaining about how you're born, welcome to Earth. Welcome to Earth. Nobody begged to be born. None of us had a choice in that. And nobody begs to die, or very few people do. We don't have a choice in that either. What we do between those 2 points, that's up to you in a free society. And you should aim for the kind of society where that is up to you, not the kind of society where your circumstances is changed by outside forces beyond your control, or where you get to victimize your neighbor in order to change your own circumstance. We'll talk more about...
Two-part question for you.
No relation.
The first is in response to an article you wrote about healthcare and armchairs.
Yes.
And my first
This one, the left hated this one. Oh, yeah.
I was not a fan either. But
good, I'm glad you came in.
Yeah, thank you. So I was wondering, you said that if you had to go find a cheap x-ray or a cheap armchair, you would go to find an armchair.
If your life depended on, you have to find a chair today and buy it now.
Yes.
Versus you have to find an x-ray and buy it now. You would buy the armchair, yes.
Yeah. So my question is, part of what allows you to find a cheap armchair is that there's such a difference in quality.
Yes.
You know, you can go and buy a chair that's $5, probably going to break soon.
Yep.
But so with healthcare,
which I said in the piece, actually.
Yeah. So with healthcare, if it's something you don't really want to go like some guy who's offering a $5 X-ray and say, hey, you want an X-ray? You know,
why?
So, because if your life depended on it, I don't think that it would be a situation where you'd be willing to risk the.
So let me ask you this: why should an X-ray cost $200, $1,000 through an insurance company? It's literally a machine, and an X-ray technician takes a picture of it and then sends it to a radiologist who actually looks at it. Right, or a doctor looks at it.
So I don't know enough about the healthcare industry to answer that. But
the reason I'm saying this is because what I'm saying is that one of the reasons these things are so much more expensive and so much less competitive is because you do not actually have a free market in healthcare. You have a heavily, heavily regulated market in healthcare. If you want cheap x-rays, you have to have a competition in the x-ray business. There is no competition in the x-ray business. You can't go and look up a list of x-ray companies that are going to give you an x-ray today and then call them for the lowest price. In fact, if you go into the doctor right now and you say, I want you to take a look at this x-ray, how much will it cost me? The doctor will tell you, I can't give you that answer. Right? The doctor will tell you, I'm going to have to talk to your insurance company, or maybe I'm going to have to run it through my system, and then I'll get back to you. Is there any other product in America where if you went into a restaurant and you said, how much is that cup of coffee? They said, drink the cup of coffee, we'll tell you later. Right? It's not a free market. The point that I was making with the armchair comparison is not, of course, that armchairs are morally equivalent to healthcare. Obviously, people need healthcare more. Okay? Perhaps a better comparison would have been bread, right? Because people need bread. Okay? But the reason that bread is cheap is because there's a free market in bread, not because government is subsidizing bread. So the point that I was making is if you actually want to increase supply, the point I was making in that column, and overall about this, is that healthcare is not a right. Healthcare is a commodity. And the difference between those two views is that if you think healthcare is a right, now you're going to use the government to cram down on doctors that they must serve you at a particular price, or cram down on taxpayers that they have to pay for a certain level of your care, or cram down on insurance companies that they can't be insurance companies anymore. They have to be health coverage institutes, essentially, which is when they say that you have to accept pre-existing conditions, it's not an insurance company anymore. If you had a fire insurance company and they said you have to accept pre-existing conditions, it would just be called the piggy bank. Right? You'd burn down your house and then go get fire insurance. So that's insurance companies don't work that way. So the point I was making is if you view it as a commodity, you're going to end up making it cheaper, more plentiful, more available, more competition. And the case in point of this is LASIK eye surgery, which is really unregulated. So LASIK eye surgery used to cost like $20,000 an eye. Now it costs $3,000, $4,000 an eye. The reason for that is because the insurance companies won't cover it and because there's a competitive market because it's really expensive, right? So lots of doctors now want to be optometrists or ophthalmologists and do this sort of work. This is why my wife's a doctor, so I'm very passionate about this particular topic. They call it the road, which is the successful doctors, radiologists, ophthalmologists, anesthesiologists, dermatologists. All those people basically charge cash and don't work through insurance companies. Right? The vast majority of them work in high-level private industry, and that's if you want to make a lot of money, that's what you do. And so what you're getting is in medical schools, if you're aiming for lots of money, you go into one of those four. You're not a primary care physician. You're one of those four. If you want more primary care physicians, what should you do? You should incentivize it. What Bernie Sanders and the rest of this crew want to do, they declare it a right, and then they take away the incentive. They declare it a right for you to have health care, and then they say to the doctor, you're going to work, and you're going to like it, and we're going to make you work. And this is why there's a black market in health care in Canada, there's a black market in Israel, there's a black market in the UK. It's why people come here from all of those places to get their surgeries. So here's the reality about socialized health care. Socialized health care is good for very, very basic things, right? It's like emergency care. The same way if you walk into an emergency room today and you need an x-ray, they'll give it to you regardless of whether you have insurance, which is true. This is why in California you have a major problem with illegal immigrants who don't actually have health care coverage walking in and to the ER and using it as their health care coverage. Basically, socialized medicine works the same way, except there is no upper echelon. They've made it equal at the expense of the upper echelon. Meaning that if you now want a surgery, you got to wait 6 months online for it because we didn't give any incentive for people to become surgeons. Right? There's no cost-benefit analysis there. If you want more of something, you have to incentivize that thing. And when you take away the market, there's no incentive anymore. That's the answer as to why, that's the very long answer as to why I say healthcare is more like a chair than it is like the air or water, because somebody has to provide it to you. Thanks. Yeah.
I thank you for your answer. I respect your reasoning. I also respectfully disagree. Could I just say one thing? Later this week, Sean King is coming to campus, and I think that it's really important that...
Oh, I wish he'd come today. I would love to talk with Sean King.
I would love to see that, but I also want to say I think it's important that, given the current reality of the situation our country is facing, that you go and listen to a multitude of speakers from a multitude, a diversity...
I agree. I think everybody should go and listen to Sean King. Yeah. And then I think Sean King should debate me.